How the hell does one break the debt cycle? I was doing a podcast yesterday with a financial coach, 20 years of experience, and one of the questions I asked was, what do we do to break the debt cycle? How do people do it? And what do we do to encourage more people to do it? You know, recently data out around 940,000 people are using buy now, pay later. Average age is around 36. Average age of a credit card, I believe, is around 55. And we live in a world of credit, and it's so easy to get credit now. I was walking through the mall before, and there's a specific card that you can use for a specific large New Zealand retailer and all the benefits, and if you spend on it, then you get extra payments back. And what the financial coach was explaining to me is it actually starts by what she teaches is that you actually have to start with the reverse, and that's basically you've got to teach them to become a saver. So often with a credit card, she'll say, right, well, let's set up an automatic payment to that, and then let's start saving as well, but so that you can learn that habit, because she believes that it's habit changes that are needed. Now, obviously, she unpacks this a lot better than what I'm quickly telling you here, and I'm going to get to what it got me thinking about, but basically trying to clear the debt down, but then not using it, which makes sense. But obviously, like when we're in that debt cycle, we think, well, I can't not use the debt because I need it. But what she was basically saying is that unless you start saving at the same time or creating a new habit, what happens is you do end up paying the credit card down or the debt down, but then it sits there and then you end up using it again. Or what you do is you say like, oh, okay, I always pay my credit card down, but then then you use it and then you just repeat the cycle. So you've got to try and break the cycle. Now, most people at this point, they're going to object and be like, well, I don't pay any interest, my credit card's fine, blah, 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 blah. Great, cool. No, this isn't for you. Okay, you're perfect, you're amazing, you're not contributing to MasterCard and Visa's billions of dollars of profits. You know, okay, even your account fees and whatnot. Yeah, we get it, we've seen all your comments about how the year points are well worth it, blah, 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 blah. This isn't about that, but it's about changing habits. Now, one thing that it got me thinking about is how now there's so many Kiwi people that are investing at the same time. So that's cool, because the platforms that we have to use in order to do this now have hundreds of thousands of people. But realistically, a lot of these companies haven't actually been around that long. Like some of them are only coming up to be 10 years old. When you talk about like fractional investing and really getting easy access to different funds and things like that. So the cool thing about that is then it plants different education into your life. Now, if you think about it, if you do use one of these platforms, or even if you're in KiwiSaver and using a fund provider, they'll be sending you updates. And normally an investment platform is sending you something very different to a credit platform. So a credit platform, from when I had credit, I would get updates around sales that were coming up, limited edition sales, and hey, this place now accepts the card that you have. Hey, you're eligible for more credit. And basically you're being encouraged to spend. And then also you start to, as you shop online with these cards, then you end up in the marketing funnels and retargeting of the companies that you're using as well. So then you get bombarded by their sales and hey, buy before this date and it's going to be cheaper, like all this sort of shit. So not only are you getting bombarded by credit companies trying to get you to stay in their cycle, but then the big brands and the businesses are tap ruining your inbox and your attention and texting you and bombarding you, being like, give us your money. Now, when you really simplify life and business down, normally there's one person asking for their money and the other person has got it and they're trying to figure out, am I going to give it over to you? Now, it only gets handed over when value exceeds price, but one of the really smart things that credit does is it makes it look like what you're paying isn't the full amount. So when they break it down into payments, or you've got 0% interest or whatever, you sort of remove that feeling of, okay, this is a $2,000 item or $200 item, but it's actually now only 10 payments of $20 or $200 or whatever the case may be. So then the value completely changes. So is that item actually worth $2,000 for you? Like only you decide that. So that's where it gets very fascinating as to, there's a bit going on here, as to how we then decide to give the money over. Now, I'd imagine a lot of people wouldn't actually hand over the whole $200 because value wouldn't exceed price, but it does when they think, okay, it's either $20 or $200 over X amount of installments. So very, very smart what they do to break that down. But anyway, back to these investing companies that we now are getting emails from, what are they telling us? They're saying, hey, look at the recent volatility. We need to teach you about that. You need to learn what that's about. Hey, hang in there. Hey, your KiwiSaver might have gone backwards at the moment, but here's why that's happening. Think longer term. This is a great time to buy. You're going to learn that, you're buying funds at a cheaper rate. And they're teaching you things like building wealth, staying the course, delaying gratification, owning stuff. Whereas credit platforms are normally telling you instant gratification, get more debt. They're entrapping you in staying in a cycle rather than educating you. They are saying, oh shit, like don't own shit, oh shit. And it's funny, people will freak out about the World Economic Forum and stuff and be like, you own nothing and be happy. And it's like, well, we are pretty keen on giving all of our cash to other places already anyway and ticking up heaps of stuff on debt and not breaking this cycle. Now, point being is all of us have to figure out and navigate our own financial journey. But you'll remember a saying as well, and that is that you are the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. Now, basically what this means as well is that you then start to absorb what they're doing and how they think, and then maybe you start acting like that too. So then why is that important? Well, it's also a good reminder that when you want to build habits, that you want to be mindful of your environment. So if you're trying to give up on vape, for instance, then you don't want to have vapes around you, and you want to try and remove things from the environment, which is one tactic. But again, that kind of crosses over with the people that you have in your environment. So then you have to now, in this day and age, you've got to audit the environment that you have online. What are you listening to? Who are you letting text you? Who are you letting into your inbox? And if you're trying to break a debt cycle or a spending cycle, well, then you have to change habits. And then you start by looking at your environment. Now, then you go, okay, well, maybe you need to unsubscribe from all of these emails that are coming through encouraging you to spend. Maybe you need to try and wean off of the credit or the buy now, pay later. Someone recently said to me that they've got 2 accounts. 42% of people have more than one buy now, pay later or afterpay type account. And they said, but I've never bothered, I don't use them. And I'm like, out of interest, why don't you close them? They're like, oh, LOL, I haven't really looked into it. And it's like, we got to change the person who we are. Now, I was the same when I finally got through my massive consumer finance card. I had it and I paid it all off as like epic, achieved my goal, but I didn't really want to close it. And I didn't close it because I'm like, but what if I need it? And so I had to eventually become the person that was like, bro, you don't need it. The whole point is that you don't need it. You've changed who you are and you don't want to be the person that will need it. So let it go and become that person. So I closed it down. But in the meantime, every 6 months I get a $50 fee on it. I still get the pamphlets in the mail. Hey, this place. And so I was inviting into my life more reason to spend and to be tempted to use it and to stay into the trap. So again, then be very mindful of what is in your environment and what you're letting come through. Now, back to then our investment platforms. Someone messaged before and said, yeah, 100%, I haven't really used consumer finance in my life, but I am only new to investing. And it wasn't until I signed up to a share platform and started investing that I realized, wow, I don't know much about this. And now that I have some skin in the game, I am so much more in tune with all of this and am starting to learn how it all works. So it's a good example if we can look at something we do want to be doing. So say we are in debt at the moment and go, you know what? I don't want to be like this forever. What's the opposite? Okay, it's probably building wealth and starting to save and invest. Why don't I sign up and start doing that even with a small amount now? And then you're going to put fresher and better information and education into your environment, like updates around, hey, what tax rate you should have your your investing account set to. Oh, I've never thought about that before, because normally I'm just like, oh, great, I should buy those sunglasses because they're on sale for the next 48 hours and there's an email in my inbox telling me to do it and I can afford to do it. Oh, they're going to give me more credit. So you start to have to learn things like, oh, okay, how come my shares have gone down? Excuse me. What share am I going to buy? And you've got to start making choices, and then you start to go on a journey of learning more about agency and responsibility and making these decisions and understanding your own risk and learning. And it's a very, very simple way to see that just by what you change in your environment can end up compounding and changing the outcomes that you have in your life. So my final piece here is, as much as we can think like credit platforms and all this stuff is really great, be very careful with the platforms that you invite into your life, because they can potentially determine that man, I would have nailed that. It would have sounded so good. They will potentially determine the outcomes that you'll end up seeing in your life.